Hey guys, this is Real Appalachia with Melody
and Shane.
And we are continuing on with our folklore series today. If you've been enjoying these videos, then subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on one. Shane is going to be telling us about what today?
Well, you familiar with the saying that dead men tell no tales?
I am.
You've heard that? Well, apparently dead women do sometimes.
Well, women like to talk.
They do.
So I could see that.
I'm glad you said that and I didn't. So
yeah.
Come after her in the comments. Leave me alone this time.
I'm a woman, so I can say it.
Exactly.
We like to talk.
I know nothing. I have no opinion on that. But anyway, this story is about what's known as the Greenbrier ghost. Are you familiar with this story?
Not really. I know a little bit.
Well, brace yourself.
Okay.
Hold on to your knickers or whatever. This is one of my favorite ghost stories.
Okay.
I hate that it missed Halloween, but like you said before,
I love ghost stories year-round.
I love ghost stories year-round.
Yeah.
Always up for one of those, aren't we?
Yes.
Well, this one starts back in 1870s.
Mm-hmm.
A young girl was born by the name of Elva Zona Heaster. She went by Zona.
Okay.
And her childhood was very little known about that.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't what she's known for. She's not remembered for any of that. She was born in Richlands, West Virginia. Not Virginia.
Yeah.
Not to be confused.
That's what I was getting excited about.
Not Virginia, but this is in Greenbrier County, hence the name the Greenbrier Ghost.
Okay.
So when she was young, she had a child out of wedlock. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of a big deal back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was a little bit, her options were limited.
Right.
Well, into town rolls this blacksmith, a guy by the name of Edward Shue. Mm-hmm. And he takes a liking to her and he starts to woo her, and sure enough, they get married soon after. Well, Zona's mom her name was Mary Jane Heaster. She did not like this Edward Shue. He just rubbed her the wrong way for whatever reason right off the bat. Mm-hmm. But, so Mary Jane had to just, let her live her own life. So they get married, and their wedding bliss was very short-lived because on January 23rd, 1897, poor Zona Heaster is found dead.
Mm.
Yeah, terrible.
Okay.
So what had happened was a young neighbor boy, a kid by the name of Andy Jones, was sent by Edward Shue. He sent him up to the house to check on Zona, ostensibly to ask if she needed anything from the store. Mm-hmm. Well, the little boy comes in here and finds her body at the bottom of their stairs.
Oh, no.
So he panics, as you can imagine. What a little boy would go through.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
So he runs home and tells his mom, and the mom calls the doctor. It's a man by the name of George Knapp. Mm-hmm. And George Knapp gets on his way, but it takes him a while to get there, so probably about an hour's passed by the time he gets to the house. Mm-hmm. Well, sure enough, when Dr. Knapp gets there, he finds that Edward Shue had already come home, and he had taken Zona's body up, dressed her in a long dress with a stiff collar and a high neck, and had her on the bed, and he was just, out of control, hysterical. Mm-hmm. The love of his life had died, and he was just he couldn't stand the thoughts of it. But anyway, so Dr. Knapp, every time he tried to inspect the body and to see what had happened and whatever, well, this guy just would not, he just flipped out, like, oh my God.
Oh, going all to pieces.
Lord,
or pretending to anyways.
Yeah, just hysterical. And so eventually the Dr. Knapp just gave up on it. And he ended up ruling her death as being from what's called an everlasting faint. Are you familiar with that term?
I'm not, no.
Yeah, that's a good one, because it was a very polite word for a heart attack back then.
And she was young.
Faint. Yeah.
Yeah, so that don't make much sense.
Yeah, that didn't stick.
Yeah.
So, eventually he changed the ruling to that she died due to childbirth. So, that didn't stick either. So
yeah, that's like two totally different things, and she wasn't even having a baby, so yeah, that don't make any sense.
No, he was just pressured to rule, on it, and he wanted to do something, and he probably thought he was doing the right thing, but she's dead, and we can't change that. Let's just make it as benign as possible.
Right.
And I probably didn't consider any of that stuff. Well, Zona's body was sent back to her parents' house for the wake and the funeral, and Edward Shue's actions during this time drew a little bit more suspicion from the mother. Mm-hmm. He flipped, but from being extremely energetic and full of life to being just completely distraught, and he's lost the love of his life. Well, they looked in the casket too, and he had tied a big scarf around Zona's neck, and said it was her favorite scarf, which was highly suspicious. So all this was just raised a bunch of red flags. Yeah, did not. So after the funeral, Mary Jane, which was Zona's mother, offered to give back the sheet that had been in Zona's coffin, and Edward refused for whatever reason. And when he refused, Mary Jane went to wash the sheet, and it turned blood red, literally blood red. At first, then it turned pink, and then it turned white. And that kind of stuck out in Mary Jane's mind. It just, that shouldn't
Like some
happen.
kind of sign?
Like some kind of sign, right. That's exactly right. So she really could not get peace about any of this stuff. So Mary Jane prayed every night for 4 weeks. And that she was praying that her daughter would reveal what had happened to her. And finally, Zona revealed herself in a dream. And she appeared as a bright light that kind of just morphed into the figure of Zona after a while. And she started to tell Mary Jane what had happened. She told her mom that Edward had been very abusive during the whole time of their marriage.
Oh, no.
And that she said that she was broken. She had her neck was broken because she supposedly didn't have any meat ready for dinner.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, he thought she hadn't cooked any meat, so he killed her. That's
Wow.
pretty small
Yeah.
provocation. So, as proof of that happening, while Zona was telling the story, she turned her head backwards while talking to Mom, just
Oh my
like seeing out of The
gosh.
Exorcist or something. And
Yeah.
can you imagine seeing that? And it just,
No, and your daughter.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so after that happened, Mary Jane still thought, oh, it's just a bad, horrible dream and a nightmare, but it happened 4 more times. And, or actually 3 more times. It happened 4 separate occasions that she revealed herself in that. So finally, Mary Jane thought, I've got to do something about this. So she went to the local prosecutor, a man by the name of John Alfred Preston. And she begged and pleaded with him to open the case again. So he went, Preston, the prosecutor, went to speak to Dr. Knapp, and Dr. Knapp ended up admitting that he really didn't do the best job examining the body.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all they needed to exhume that body.
Right.
And of course, what do you know, Edward Shue fought that the whole tooth and nail the whole way. Now, if your wife had died, wouldn't you want to know, well...
If your spouse had
If your
died.
spouse had died, would you want to know what killed him?
Yeah, exactly.
So that,
You would want to know the truth
adds
if
to
you were
the-
innocent.
adds to the fishiness. Well, guess what the autopsy showed?
Her neck had been
Her
broken.
neck had been broken,
Wow.
so everything that she had said in that dream had been true.
Wow.
Yeah. So Shue was arrested and charged with murder. And while he was waiting his trial, they were doing some background checks on him and found out that he had a pretty shady past, Edward Shue did. He had been married once before, and that wife had accused him of being super abusive in that marriage. She lived, but he was very abusive. Well, then he had a second wife, and she had died mysteriously. He claimed that she fell and hit her head on a rock, and that
Yeah, right.
yeah, exactly. And it was said that he'd boasted that he planned to marry 7 different women, and that he would get away with the murder because there'd never be any evidence. I guess he thought he was too smart for the system. So,
Wow.
yeah, and this
7 different women, like all at one time?
well,
Or-
I think differently, but yeah, after he'd kill one at a time, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I guess. I don't think there's any.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
He didn't care to murder somebody, but he was very much against polygamy. He drew his line there.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, was he planning to marry them all at once and just was that brazen about everything? But,
Yeah.
no.
Well, then they go to trial. So the prosecution tried to avoid introducing anything about a ghost visit because they thought that might look a little, come on.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you have a dream about a
Lose
ghost.
some credibility.
Yeah. But the defense thought that it'd be great to do that. So they brought...
In their favor.
Yes. They found out about this. They brought Mary Jane on the stand and had her testify about what she'd seen and done. Well, she consistently kept her story straight. She told the exact same story the exact same way, and she had such passion and conviction when she was talking
I'm sure.
that it ended up backfiring on the defense, and they ended up convicting Edward Shue of murder.
Wow.
Yeah, on a dead woman's. That's the first time in history that I know of, I've ever heard of, that a ghost, the testimony of a ghost, basically, had it been used to convict somebody. So he was sentenced to life in prison, and he only ended up living about 3 years in prison before an epidemic swept through there and took him out.
Karma.
Karma, yeah.
Yeah.
And for her part, Zona's ghost was never seen again. She finally found peace, and
Good.
that's pretty much the end of that story. But
I wonder what happened to her child that I guess her mom maybe would have taken her on. I mean, I wouldn't think that a stepfather that had killed his wife would want to take in the child, but to me that would be a major red flag too, like how he acted in that with those circumstances too. But it shows you the change in times, because now it's always the husband, and it usually is. So But
back then,
sometimes it's like that's usually who they look at first with anything like that. And it seemed like the doctor especially was trying to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. So
yeah, I think we see enough television and documentaries and everything else now to that, again, as soon as it happens, 99% of the chance him,
or the boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah, and it unfortunately usually is.
Yeah.
But back then there wasn't that precedent set to that degree.
Yeah.
So it just his actions kind of gave him away, and then the ghost, the powerful.
Well, and you think about his second wife too. I mean, wow. I mean, he got away with that murder, I'm sure. Like, she fell and hit her head on a rock. I really highly doubt that.
Yeah, just back then, it would have been so much easier. There's forensic evidence, blah, 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 it didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
It was basically you came, somebody had a bashed in head, and took the guy's story if he sounds kind of reasonable and credible,
Yeah.
What else can you do?
Exactly.
That's why we've had so many advances in the fingerprinting and the DNA and all that's crucial to fixing a lot of these problems.
I love true crime stuff, and I love ghost stories, so this is kind of 2 in 1 for me.
It is. I just love the fact that a ghost convicted a murderer.
So I know, that's so cool. And in our area, our little Appalachian area here.
So up there near there, there's a road marker that tells that story.
So, I would love to see
this is one of those, like you said, true crime. This is a true ghost story too. Just a strange.
Well, I'm sure that it's documented in the court case.
Yeah.
They did that back then.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a good little story. I love that one. That's one of my favorite ghost stories because it's not spooky as much as it's kind of disturbing what he did, but he didn't get away with it. The good guy or the good ghost.
Yeah.
It's like Casper.
That's really interesting. I mean, that's really cool. And we would love to hear what you guys think of this. So let us know in the comments. If you did like it, then give us a thumbs up. Like we said, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of these interesting stories.
Yes, and we appreciate our patrons and financial sponsors.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you more than you'll ever know, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you next time.